All right, guys. Eric here, Underdog MMA. We are here with Preston Parsons from the UFC. I've also got Mike Trasso from the Merge. And so, quick background on why we're here. So, I watch every UFC fight, and when this Saturday, the Preston was fighting, and I ended up sending Mike probably 3 or 4 different videos of the takedowns that Preston was doing, and I do it on all the fights. And so, I'm like, oh, check out this takedown. So I do one, and Mike said, I need to make a breakdown on this. This is killer. And so I said, we should get this guy on the phone and talk to this guy about his wrestling and stuff. So that's kind of the backstory of how this happened. So Preston, glad you're on the call today, man.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, you want to kick it off? You got some questions?
Yeah. Well, I guess, Preston, first off, right, for folks on here that know you, folks that aren't familiar yet, just, I guess, give us a quick rundown of just like your background, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, whatever it might be.
I started doing MMA when I was 16. When I was young, I was super into boxing. I wasn't even sure what jiu-jitsu and wrestling really was until I was about 16, and my stepdad introduced it to me. So I started with karate when I was really young, and boxing in the garage with my buddies and my brother, and then kind of moved forward into wrestling in the front yard in the grass until I could find a good MMA gym to join.
Okay, so it started at that age, and then obviously as time progressed, I mean, it was just MMA for what? I mean, the past 8+ years now, just mixing everything together.
Yes, sir. Yep. I've done everything for the last 10 years. I didn't wrestle in high school. That's something I wish I would have done. I kind of started doing everything at once when I was 16.
Okay, interesting. Well, it surprised me. It surprised me to hear you haven't wrestled in high school because so when Eric sent me these clips, I mean, you're doing these great takedowns, right? And then on top of it, I'm like a knee slide snob. I always preach about double legs when the guy's sprawling, knee sliding in, right? Getting your hips back in a good position. I always use the example of like, you're a TP, your knee slide back in, your hips are back in, and you're finishing. And your fight, I mean, you did 2 perfect knee slides, right? One of them to finish takedown, I think to get into side control before the head and arm. But I mean, you haven't wrestled before, right? So obviously someone's teaching you these things, you're feeling these things out. I mean, do you have someone kind of working with you on your wrestling in the MMA gym that you're at?
Currently, I don't really have very many wrestling coaches. When I first started out, when I was 16, I had a lot of good coaches coming in and out of the gym. My first wrestling coach was Caleb Pelletier, and he was great. He was won state 3 times in high school, and then he wrestled for West Point. So him beating up on me for years and even getting in on his legs was a win for me back then.
Nice. Yeah, and Eric, actually, we have it queued up already. If you don't mind pulling up that knee slide video.
I don't know if you can see this, but let me go ahead and share this with you. So this was the knee slide.
Yeah, we could play it a second or third time if it's choppy, but yeah, I mean, this is what really impressed me, right? I mean, end of the day, you take the shot, right? And he's kind of gets like a little mini sprawl going on, and right around that phase right there, right?
Right. That's where he drives the knee in, right?
Yep, drives it right through right there, and obviously that brings your hips back in, right? So when I first saw that, I'm like, all right, we got to do a breakdown of this guy. I mean, if anyone's, when folks want to watch this will be the first time it's kind of popping out a teaser, but not this Friday, but next Friday, I'm 100% doing a breakdown on this knee slide because this is crucial stuff on finishing a double leg. This is crucial details. In the wrestling.
Preston just does it automatically. He doesn't need to learn it. He just automatically knew that that's what you need to do, right?
No, yeah. I did do a lot of drilling on that. When I was my wrestling coaches were always huge on having the hips in, not reaching, not trying to lift with your back or anything. So if I am getting sprawled on, my immediate goal always try to get my hips back underneath me. That way I can either fight back up to the feet, wrestle back up, or finish the takedown like I did in the fight.
So are you thinking when you're doing that? I mean, when you're in there, are you thinking I got to get, or is it just automatic at that point?
It's kind of automatic at that point. We do a lot of drilling, just the same setup, just a jab to a takedown. So when I time it right, it's a little bit easier. Sometimes you can get the takedown with not much resistance. But anytime I feel like I'm getting sprawled on, I'm back up. Or anytime I shoot, I normally don't finish the takedowns for my knees like that. My coaches are big on getting back to your feet, driving. Don't try to finish from your knees. But on that one, it just flowed pretty well. I wasn't thinking about it at all. It was just getting the finish on the takedown. So it just kind of went into muscle memory.
Are you like looking to get that fight on the ground, or do you not care where it goes? Like, what's your mind frame, and how comfortable are you on the ground, jiu-jitsu wise and wrestling wise?
I'm pretty comfortable on the ground. Obviously, I don't want to be on my back in an MMA fight. which I was there a few times. But I do feel pretty confident and comfortable on my back if I do end up there to get the sweep or to catch a submission, or at least stay active enough to not get elbowed or punched while I'm down there or submitted myself. But in that fight, I was kind of flowing. It was a change of an opponent. I think I had 4 or 5 days to prepare for him. I knew he was mostly a striker, and I did plan on timing my takedowns, but nothing was really forced in that fight. I was kind of just flowing.
Yeah, and I think Mike added a clip here as well. Check out this one. This is what do we call this one, Mike? Is it the Hollywood?
Oh,
Hollywood
the John Wayne sweep. Yeah.
Oh yeah, John Wayne. Sorry, guys.
That sweep is actually when I first learned that sweep, it was Neil Melanson. He was doing a seminar at a gym that I trained at a while back, and he was going over Darce chokes from half guard and kind of had to beat the underhook by punching your fist to the floor. So anytime somebody has kind of like a half, not a great wizard, I can kind of catch that wrist and I can try to elbow down and roll through on that sweep. That one is, again, one I learned off of him showing what not to do when you're on top. Make sure you have a strong wizard punching it to the floor, or that sweep could happen. And when he said that, I was like, oh, I'm gonna start looking for that sweep. And I catch a lot of guys with it.
You don't see it in the UFC that much. I mean, like a beautiful sweep where the guy is on bottom, gets on top. I mean, you see it, but it's not as common as you think. Usually they scramble up and get out, right? But that was pretty impressive. I think you had 2 sweeps in that fight, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think so. I think I 2 or 3, and I think it was that same sweep every time.
Yeah, and I noticed you got that one. What was it? I don't know if it's the beginning of the first or the beginning of the second. You got him basically well over your head on that one. Do you remember that one? You shot in real quick, got really deep on his legs, and then he was.
Oh yes, yeah, the beginning of the second. Yes, I wanted to get a big slam on the takedown, but I didn't want him to roll me through or create a scramble. I just wanted to make sure I ended up on top. Whether it wasn't like it didn't matter to me whether I ended up in side control as long as I was on top.
Yeah.
Now when you're, because I also understand you have your own gym, right? You have your own MMA facility.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you're, I guess, are there times where you're just training and rolling without striking, or are you like 100% I'm MMA all day? Like, do you ever just roll and train jiu-jitsu without strikes?
I do. I always try to see them. I like rolling with the high level guys. So if there's a black belt in there, or there's a higher ranked guy and he's not an MMA guy, I enjoy all of it. I love jiu-jitsu. I love wrestling. So I'm kind of thinking about ground and pound all the time, but I do enjoy just rolling without ground and pound.
Do you think your style is different from, like, from a jiu-jitsu perspective strictly, if you're rolling at your school, right? Are you playing more guard? Is your game totally different than it is when strikes are involved? Because as you mentioned, right, in an MMA fight, you prefer not to be on your back. I guess when you're just doing jiu-jitsu, is it different for you?
No, actually it's not, because when I am on my back, I try to play a very aggressive guard or aggressive game off my back. So I'm constantly pulling the guy close to me, trying to attack his neck or his arms. So I don't do too much just laying flat on my back from any position if I can.
You're trying to scramble up to your feet basically every time. Yeah,
scramble up or look for a straight armbar from guard. I like to work a lot of underhooks, so it keeps my head close to the body where there's not much space for them to land damaging shots. But yeah, I do. I think about the space and the ground and pound all the time when I roll.
So are you a fan of UFC?
Oh yes, yeah, definitely a big fan. Lately, I haven't been as much of a fan as I was. Like I haven't watched the fights as much as I used to. It's been busy training. I kind of guilty of not keeping up with the guys lately. But my weight class, I do try to watch all the fights in my weight class.
Yeah, I know. What's funny too is I have a friend who teaches me Spanish in Chile, and I was sharing him the fight with what is his name, Ignacio Bahamondes, and then I was going through and I saw that you fought him, and he's really good, and I know you have a victory over him probably a while back because I think it was like your second or third fight, but that guy's really good, and I noticed that you had a victory over that. It's a pretty big deal.
Right, and in that fight, I was definitely intent on getting the takedown. If you do go back and watch that fight,
right?
Yeah, he's very good, and he had just come off a big knockout with a head kick. It was my first fight for Titan FC, and which was a bigger promotion for me at the time. So I was definitely looking to get a win, not a spectacular knockout or anything like that. So if you do watch that fight, I shot from about 4 feet away and got back to my feet and got the takedown.
It's like
Hey, that's
Ryan
where the knee
Bader.
slide comes into play right there.
Right, exactly. I, if I'm not mistaken, that's kind of how I got in. I shot, knee slid in, and got him to the fence to lock my hands.
Have they told you who your next opponent's going to be yet, or are you guys still looking at that?
They have not. Actually, during that fight, I broke my hand, so I'm getting surgery on Monday on my hand. I tried not to show it, but in the first round, I sat on the bench. I looked at my corner, and I was like, I think my hand's broken. But it didn't hinder the fight at all. It didn't hurt that bad either. Just I could tell something was wrong, and I couldn't really clench my fist. So
Do you
a lot of
remember
times
where
when I
it
was
was?
throwing,
When it
no,
what,
I need to go back and watch it again.
Mm.
I want to say it was one of the ground and pound strikes, but it was my left hand. So if you kind of watch closely, you can see towards the end I was kind of hitting him with the knuckles on the inside, opposed to hitting him with the actual fist.
And you're a righty?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so probably better left hand than right hand, right? To
Yes,
break.
no, absolutely. And I had a surgery last year. I had tendon damage in my right hand on my knuckle, so I was out for 3 months because of that, and now my left hand. But again, it's a lot better now. It's my left hand this time because I can still write and do all my normal stuff.
Yeah, and so you said you have no organized wrestling experience. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, we
Very
were
impressive.
getting on here like, yeah, I mean, I was looking, I was like, I was googling, where did this guy go to college? Where did he wrestle in college, right? And then you're like, I didn't wrestle in high school. Like, how did
That's one of the things I really wish I would have done. My stepdad is the one that kind of introduced me to grappling because growing up, I was always a fan of like the Rocky movies. That's kind of what got me into it.
Yeah, me too.
Boxing, stand up, but I didn't really know what jiu-jitsu or much about wrestling. And my stepdad said, you need to wrestle if you want to be an MMA fighter. And was like, this is, if the guy doesn't know how to defend these takedowns, then it's automatic win. And anybody can throw a punch. Not everybody can grapple.
And so what was it? What was that point where you're like, I want to be an MMA fighter, and you were actually serious about it? Did you see something that caused that?
Probably as soon as I started watching UFC fights, I was kind of hooked. I wanted to do it. I wanted to. I've always wanted to be a champion at something. When I was younger, it was football. I like basketball. I was kind of a little more nervous as a kid, so I was always afraid of signing up for the school teams and everything like that. But then I found a gym, and I kind of found out what it was like to be training and be around guys that have similar goals, and it's just kind of grew from there.
And so that's kind of interesting. So who was the big popular person out there? Who was the champion at that time when you got into it? Was it like GSP or?
Yeah, GSP was still fighting. Frankie Edgar was the 55 champ. I was lightweight at the beginning of my career, so I watched a lot of the lightweight fights. I was my favorite fighter was Joe Lozon. I loved seeing jiu-jitsu work. It was just cool to me to see guys winning fights off of their back and proving jiu-jitsu works.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm curious to also understand, like, you opened your, like, how long ago did you open your MMA gym?
About 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay. So, I mean,
right in the middle of COVID.
Oh, geez. Yeah. So,
perfect timing right there.
I'd love to even hear about that, but, open up your gym, obviously, fighting in UFC now. I mean, I imagine your schedule's packed, right? I even heard you give a shout out to your girlfriend after the fight. So, I mean, you got a lot going on, right? You got a girlfriend, you got you're fighting the UFC, you got a gym now. I mean, how is it kind of balancing all this? Because right now, I mean, you're ecstatic to be fighting in the UFC, and this is an amazing opportunity. But there's a lot going on, right?
Right. No, there's definitely a ton going on. I have a huge support system. I have a lot of local fighters that help me out. A lot of guys that hopefully, and I'm pretty confident soon, will be in the UFC. So if I can, I try to get most of the classes covered at the gym. Have other people teach them, even if I like to still be there to kind of help out. But right now I'm really focused on me, focused on my training, focused on doing things right, and opposed to coaching every single class like I was before. But it is definitely a lot to juggle. But my main priority always is making sure I get my 2 good training sessions in a day. And if there's a certain game plan to work for an opponent, that I make sure I spend most of my time doing that.
And you said that you were so you said you were fighting at lightweight at one point?
Yes, all my amateur fights, I was 5-0 amateur, and they were all at lightweight. In my first pro fight was a 55 fight. Second pro fight was 55, and I missed weight.
Fight I think was 160 catch weight. I think I thought it was a mistake when they said it. When I was in Hawaii, I met a guy. I think his name is Zach Zane. I could be wrong, but he fights at 155, and I saw him, and he wanted to roll, and I was like, I was sure he was like either a middleweight or a welterweight, right? And he's like, no, I fight a lightweight. I was like, you have to be kidding me. Like, he is huge. I mean, it looks like he's 200 pounds, and it's just amazing. So when I heard that they announced you at 160, I was like, yeah, that must be some type of mistake.
Right. Well, no,
You're
it
big
was right.
170.
Yeah, 170 is not a super tough cut for me. 55 kind of scarred me for life, not to want to ever try that again. If they made that 165 division, that would be an easy cut for me still. I could fight at 165 all day, but right now 170, I feel comfortable. I walk around probably 185, 86 while I'm in shape, so it's never a huge cut.
Yeah.
So I don't have to spend my fight camp stressing about making weight. I can focus on game planning and training for the fight, opposed to stressing about cutting 30 pounds.
And how's your nutrition? Do you focus pretty close on that, or is it because the weight tough's not that bad? How does that work?
No, I have a sweet tooth, so I have to kind of be careful. And it hits me at nighttime. I do well during the day. My diet's actually kind of different than most people's. I normally fast until around 2 p.m., 3 p.m. every day, and then I'll eat lunch. And I don't like training on a full stomach, so I eat a light lunch, and then I'll train again midday, and then I'll stuff my face at nighttime right before bed.
I do the exact same thing. I don't eat till later, and then I always gotta have my ice cream before I go to bed. It's terrible. But yeah, I got a sweet.
Exactly.
I always wonder, because I know some guys aren't foodies, right? So they just eat like they don't care what they eat. They'll eat just rice and chicken all the time, and so cutting is never. And then you see some guys in the UFC, they'll get really big, or especially post retirement, right? You see them because obviously what you're doing to your body to get down to some of these weights is obviously not healthy.
Right. No, exactly. But my diet's pretty clean, especially leading up to fights and in fight camps. I eat a lot of vegetables. I don't eat very many carbs. I kind of feel okay without them. And if I stay away from bread, I stay away from dairy. But lots of protein and lots of vegetables.
Okay. No, that's good. Mike, you got anything else?
I was gonna say that's it's an interesting concept that you said about the intermittent fasting, right? Because I actually do that, but I ran into the issue where if I get like a morning workout in and it's like pretty intense, I want to eat and like put something in my body, right? But then I'm like, I don't want to break the fast. So I guess just that's interesting. Do you get a hard workout in the morning and then you just still don't eat until 2?
Yes. Every morning I run a lot, so I do 5 miles every day. So that's first thing I do when I wake up in the morning. I run 5 miles. I sometimes will lift after that, and then I have a noon practice where all of our pro and amateur guys come in and we do our training. But I'll have a protein shake sometimes after I run or after training, but normally don't eat any actual food until around 2 or 3. But I'm actually starting to try to not do that anymore, and kind of eat more meals throughout the day, because for recovery and everything else, because I have noticed like I'm sore all the time and I need to kind of recover. And on fight week, I normally not training as hard, so I kind of my diet changes a little bit. Then I'll eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, opposed to not eating until lunch and dinner.
Yeah, so now you have to like fuel. I mean, you really have to fuel yourself, right? Versus like your normal 9 to 5 or whatever, you can eat a cheeseburger, where you actually have to go into. And so how long are these sessions? You said you try to get 2 solid MMA sessions per day.
Yes, and they're about an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes, depending on the intensity.
Do you ever have to nap after your first one? Do you ever do that?
If I have time, I try to like set out a good 30 minutes every day. And even if I can't get to sleep, I'll just lay there with my eyes closed and get up feeling a little bit more refreshed.
Yeah. So 3 hours of pretty hard training a day, right? And you're doing everything, right? So are you doing Thai boxing?
Yes, I do. My schedule is kind of Tuesday, Thursday nights around 6. I'll do pad work with my striking coach, Cord, and my partner. And then Monday through Friday at noon, we have kind of our big practices where all the fighters come in. And depending on the day, we'll do wrestling drills, we'll do jiu-jitsu rolling, starting off the wall, or we'll do sparring.
And what are your thoughts on kind of the personality piece of the UFC? Because as you can see, right, general, just from my basic sense of you, right, you seem very humble. You just kind of get to work, let your work show itself in the cage, right? But yet you see a lot of the hype, some of the bigger characters, right, that come out and really kind of, push buttons or do whatever they got to do to really hype up fights. And then you see what those do numbers wise. So like, What are your thoughts on guys that do that? And is it something that you see yourself could do potentially to like start getting into that kind of upper tier of kind of who's watching who?
Right. I'm not much of a trash talker. I don't mind when people do it to me. I'd like to let other people engage it first before I go out of my way to say something bad about somebody. But I can respond pretty well, and I enjoy it. Love fighting, and I think I'm pretty good at it. So it's not. I don't mind when guys trash talk. It kind of makes it more fun for me, more motivation to train. Again, I'm not a big trash talker myself, but no, I'm a huge fan of McGregor, even with all the recent stuff that he's done and said. But I'm still a huge fan.
Yeah, I mean his attitude, right? He's a gamer, and I mean trash talking is the easy part, right? It's the showing up and the actually performing. But he is interesting. I mean, what I do like about McGregor is like, I mean, he'll go and like people go, oh well, he's faking about wanting to fight. What is it, Kamaru Usman? I'm like, he's not. I guarantee he'd go in there if he could. He's trying to get that
Right.
fight, and it is funny to see. But I do think he is a little bit of a light. He's pretty light for welterweight. I mean, Kamaru Usman's a big guy. And
Right.
that's who's
Yes.
at the top of your division right now.
Right. And that fight, I know I just got my first UFC win, but I've always felt pretty confident in a fight with Usman versus
Really?
myself. Yes, I think I would do pretty well. I think I would
Stylistically?
win. Yes, yeah, exactly. Stylistically, I like watching Usman just because he wins fights with fundamentals, and that's kind of what I drill a lot of jabs, a lot of straight punches, um, fundamental wrestling stuff, basic jiu-jitsu stuff, and just be a master at the fundamentals. And that kind of seems to be his style. Like, is a good
Yeah.
jab, good double
Great.
leg, good defense.
Yeah, I think he's very cerebral. He's very simple, right? He doesn't try to do a bunch of really wild stuff, spinning stuff. But he does have pretty good cage work. I've seen he'll really get those guys up against the cage. Even Jorge Masvidal said he couldn't get off the cage on that first fight. He just
Right.
couldn't
And
move.
yeah, so he seems very strong. I met him before I ever saw him fight. It was he was doing the commentary for Titan FC,
Mhm.
and at a weigh-ins, he sat next to me and he had the knee brace on. I guess it was right after his surgery, and he introduced himself to me, and I didn't really know who it was at first, but I don't remember him being very much bigger than me whenever he was sitting next to me. So he looks big on TV, and like even going to that last Jacksonville event, April 8th, I think it was. That was my first time going to a UFC event, and sat pretty close, and it made me realize like these guys, the TV makes everybody look huge.
Yeah.
But in person, they're normal people. They don't look that big.
And how tall are you?
5'10", 5'11". I tell
Yeah.
people 6 foot sometimes.
Yeah, you gotta throw a couple inches on there. I know my dad met Randy Couture at an event, and my dad's a pretty big guy, and Randy Couture was smaller than he was, and he was like, "Oh my god, I couldn't believe I was thinking he was gonna be this giant, right?" And it turned out to be like I think he's about maybe 6 foot or so, give or take. So I actually think that's really good that I like that you feel that you match up stylistically very well with Usman because I kind of always wonder. I think right, you need to have that mindset that like I can beat anybody in the UFC, right? Because if you don't, it's like, what are you really doing there, right?
Exactly. That's right, and that's the fight I want eventually. Like I'm in this for the long run. I want to be the welterweight champ. So that's the guy that I would have to beat right now.
Yeah, and so as far as jujitsu goes, so do you have a professor? How does that work? And like, do you have a belt? Do you use belt, or is it only like strictly no-gi? Like, how does that all work?
I'm strictly no-gi. I started getting belted a long time ago by Steve Hall in Charlotte, but it's a long drive there. I got to my brown belt under him, but I do have a professor now. He's the owner of Gracie Baja Jacksonville, and I work with him 2 or 3 times a week on a little bit of everything. He does teach jujitsu, but he'll teach a lot of wrestling and jujitsu for MMA. The way he puts it, he doesn't want me to be too jujitsu-y, like rolling for submissions, losing the top position, trying to jump on arm bars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's different in your world, right? I mean, I noticed in your interview as well, which I really liked. You were saying like, "Hey, I forgot the exact quote, but it was, I feel best when I'm, hitting every piece, right? When I'm well-rounded, when I'm doing, not just jiu-jitsu, not just wrestling, not just the striking, not kickboxing, right? It's like when I have everything kind of all pistons firing at once, not focusing just on one thing. That's when you kind of feel best. It sounds like."
Yes, definitely. That's it makes it feel like a regular fight. Makes me feel like I'm not stuck doing one thing, and options. There's a lot of different ways to win. So I love putting it all together.
And go ahead, Mike.
Oh no, I was gonna say, so from the, since we're back on the topic a little bit of just, style or just wrestling in general, folks that are gonna be watching this and want to hear, I mean, because I'd be curious to, your answer for this. How important is wrestling, in the MMA community? So A, how important is wrestling if you want to be an MMA fighter? And on top of it, in your opinion, what's like the number one takedown or a takedown you, no questions asked, you got to have if you're fighting MMA?
You got to have a good double leg. Got to have a good double leg, and you have to have a good sprawl. But I think wrestling is the number one for MMA. I'd say if you want to fight, I think you need to learn wrestling, because if you wanted to go to the ground, that's how you get it there. If the other guy's a good wrestler and you don't know how to defend takedowns, you're in for a long night.
Have you ever been have you ever been against somebody who you felt like really dominated you in wrestling? Obviously, like the way that Khabib kind of breaks people down. Have you run into that, or have you always felt like your wrestling has been as good or better than your opponents?
In my MMA fights, I've always felt like I've been pretty competitive. In the gym, my wrestling coaches would definitely have made me feel defenseless, kind of broken me. That's something you hear a lot with wrestling, is breaking guys kind of mentally and wearing them out. So, but I just try to take that and learn from it, try to do that to other guys, because I've been broken before and in wrestling, and I try not to let that ever happen again. And then once I know what it felt like, I was like, well, I'm going to do that to other guys, wear them out, break them mentally, and then do whatever I want to them after that.
With the interesting thing about Khabib, right, is that I think they call it a wrist ride, but they call it the Dagestani handcuff in Dagestan or whatever, right? Is kind of the joke, right, where they're reaching over and they're grabbing their arm and they're preventing him from getting up. I've noticed a lot of guys, like the things that Khabib did where he kind of gets kind of that like bear hug and then he'll slam him back to the ground. I noticed that basically all the things that he's done over the last like 3 or 4 years, I see it getting implemented by guys across the world, really all different gyms. I see them doing this similar way of keeping their opponent down. Like, have you any guys that you've seen that you're like, I've watched that guy, I like what he does, I'm going to try to do, implement some of that into my game?
Khabib definitely number one for that. And yes, there was one of my training partners, Mike Pope. We used to call it Poping a guy, because he would take us down. He would get top half guard, pass half guard, go to mount, make you work your butt off to get back to half guard, and then just pass back to mount, let you escape back to half guard. And the whole time he's just touching you with little shots on the top, and it would wear me out, wear all my training partners out. So he's a good pro. He hasn't fought in a long time. I think he joined the military, but he's made me feel that way many times.
Yeah, so I think the tape is huge, and it's fun for us, right? We really, I mean, Michael's like, I had him over here and he was teaching me wrestling and stuff, and I mean, to me, there's nothing more beautiful than like a well-timed double leg, right? I mean, I'm a big fan of George St. Pierre, and he's similar to you, right? That like what's his like wrestling accolades, and you're like, what do you mean he didn't wrestle in high school? Like, he's literally taking down the who's who of wrestling, and he's doing it really well. And I mean, how is it that like timing is just the main thing in there, that you just really have to just completely catch him off guard to get it?
Yes, timing, and for me, being comfortable everywhere, knowing that I can stand with the guy, really hitting him with some good shots to make him be less aware of the wrestling. So catching guys with good jabs, good any punch or any strike, and then kind of making them think you want to stand up. And as soon as they start overcommitting to their punches, drop under and look for your takedown. So the setup's a lot easier in MMA for me than it is to set up shots in a wrestling circumstance. Like just wrestling, I'm big on getting steps, get the guy to step, time his steps, go for outside singles more. But in MMA, I like to punch and get the guy to really want to commit coming forward to hit me, and then dropping under his punches and catching what I can, double leg or single, whatever it may be, and then just chain wrestling from there.
Yeah, and I know Mike has a couple more questions, but before we let you go, I wanted to know, so you having this wrestling background, what did you think of Khamzat Chimaev? What do you think of that guy? What do you think of his wrestling ability, and just kind of the hype around what he's been doing?
Yeah, then I watched his fight live. I think I wanted to see him lose. Honestly, I thought he was a little overhyped. I like Gilbert Burns, so I wanted to see Gilbert beat him. But he seems good. He seems kind of scary. He's one of those. He's Russian, right?
Yeah,
Or,
he's from Chechnya. Yeah, he's just Russia. It's I think
right.
part of Russia. Yeah.
He reminds me of just the Khabib guys. And then for me, I kind of prefer fighting strikers just because there's nothing worse than getting out wrestled by a guy or getting caught with a submission. So he seems like he's pretty good. I think he's going to do well from here on out. I definitely wanted to see Gilbert Burns win that fight, but I think that he did enough to kind of show that this guy's he's not unstoppable.
Yeah, it was pretty
I watched
close.
him fatigue and everything.
It was pretty close, and also, I mean, there was like the 2 division champion stuff that I might have been guilty of saying as well. But after seeing that fight, you gotta pump the brakes on it. You realize, like, okay, he's human. He gets tired, and you can't underestimate Gilbert Burns. That guy is a savage, right?
Right. No, exactly. And honestly, I'd probably rather fight Hamzat than Gilbert Burns.
Yeah, I mean, even with Hamzat in the post-fight press conference stood up from when he got him down. He stood up and he said in there that he started doing all these like kind of arm bars and triangles. He's like, I was like, I'm gonna knock him out, is what he said. So I think he didn't like a lot of that rolling around that he was doing, right? I mean, wrestling and someone with super dangerous jiu-jitsu, it's not a good, it just takes 1 second for him to catch you, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to stay down there with him because he's dangerous, very dangerous, and it hits hard. And I think the style was good to watch because Gilbert's a little shorter, was throwing more hooks, overhands, and everything else. And Hamzat seemed to stay more straight with his punches. And I'm a little shorter for 170,
How tall
I'd say.
are you? Oh, you said
5'10".
10, 11?
Yes, yes, sir.
10.5?
Sometimes 6.
Yeah.
Sometimes 6'3". But most guys, it seems like at welterweight are 6 foot or 6'2". So I'm usually the shorter guy. So I do enjoy watching shorter guys versus big guys, kind of see how they're winning their fights and what approach they're taking to win.
Yeah.
And then you can look at it too as it's less of a level change for you, right? If you're a little shorter.
Yes.
So
That's right. Exactly.
but no, it's really cool, man. I mean, at the end of the day, as I mentioned, right, you got a lot on your plate. I mean, I'm shocked, honestly, to hear that you literally have no wrestling background, actually. So hats off to your coaches and your hard work for displaying such great wrestling out there. And everyone's gonna hear it first here, right? End of the day. First Friday in May, episode 88, because this Friday is episode 87. But episode 88, I'm doing a breakdown on that knee slide. I have to, because it's crucial, right? You need to, like I said, you need to have that good double leg, and you got to have that knee slide as that 1-2 punch, because you can have a beautiful double leg entry, but once the guy sprawls, if you don't have an answer for it, I mean, especially in MMA, it's going to be a long day for you.
Right. That's exactly right. And I know I took one shot in there, a single leg, and sat there on my knees. I know my wrestling coach, if they were watching it, they were sitting there like, get off your knees, drive, circle. So, and I've always been big on getting your hips in, keeping the back flat on takedowns. Not always looking for the lift. I know it looks like I'm always trying to get the lift. It looks cool, but driving for the takedown finishes. But that's something we drill all the time. Hips in, drive, not trying to finish the takedown from your knees. So I think made my coaches pretty proud in that fight.
Yeah, no, I imagine so. And actually, last thing, talking about the lift. So I know lift comes from, especially if you're in like a rear body lock, for example, like a rear clinch, and you want lifting a guy, right, for a mat return. I know it's, it's all in the hips, right? You're stepping in, hipping in. Same thing with a double leg. You're trying to get your hips underneath you, so you're not truly just using your arms. But is it, when you're fighting in the ring, is it just too fast of a thought process to think about, do I want to tire myself out by lifting? Like, at any point do you say, hey, I'm just going to not try and lift this guy because I'm going to tire myself out, adrenaline? I mean, do you have that thought process, or is it just like, hey, I don't even think about that?
Yes, I have. And when I fought D-Rod and I had that loss, that was running through my mind, because as a pro, I had never gone the distance. I had one fight as an amateur where I went all 3 rounds. That's a lot different. It was a long time ago, but I know my cardio always holds up. I'm one of the hardest workers in the gym. I definitely outwork a lot of guys, and that's the reason my teammates gave me the nickname Pressure, is that I'm constantly pressuring forward. My cardio is always good. But I will say, in the D-Rod fight where I lost, that first takedown I had him pushed against the cage, all that was running through my head is, don't wear yourself out, don't use too much energy, don't look for the lift. And then I ended up losing the fight, and I still had a full gas tank. So I should have just went for it. But I try to take the path of least resistance. If the lift is there and I get my hips in right, it doesn't take much energy. But if there's an easier route, I'll take that route.
What are your thoughts as far as like with I know obviously you're a 10-3 fighter. Nobody wants to lose, right? Especially in a octagon, right? But like when you do lose, I mean, how important is that? And when you look at like obviously who's the other guy that lost Perry, right? Who is I mean, that's a hell of a guy to lose to, right? I mean, he's a total stud. So like what is the thought process? I mean, how much have you learned from, okay, because I think I look at what you did Saturday night and go, all right, well, if he went against D-Rod again, I feel like, especially I believe he has a I forgot if he's left-handed or not, but he has a nice cross. So I was like, I wonder if you ran that back a couple times, if you could get the victory. I feel like you probably could.
No, I absolutely believe that I could, and yep, he is left-handed. I that whole fight was just I was off. I know it's easy to say, but I was definitely not in the same mind frame as I was for this past fight. I was having too much fun with it. I wasn't really there to get in a fight. I do my best when I'm just thinking, all right, it's like McGregor said a while back, like entering a car crash. You're going to get hurt. Your shins are bare. Elbow strikes are allowed. So just be prepared for that and be first. Know you want to hurt the guy before he hurts you.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, how do people get a hold of you? You got like do you have Instagram or Twitter? What are you using for like
I
on your
use
fans to be able
Instagram.
to do?
I haven't been on Twitter in a long time, but I have Instagram and it's P_Parsons MMA.
P_Parsons MMA. Yeah. And the cool thing is, so Mike, at my gym that we used to be training at Gracie Hamida in San Diego, and Mike was the wrestling guy, right? And he's a black belt as well, and would compete and win and do a lot of really cool stuff. But
Dangerous combination.
yeah, he's a very
Yeah, it definitely
technical
is.
guy. He's a very technical guy, very humble. But I just realized like, man, wrestling is so important, right? And all that jujitsu you have, if you can't get somebody to the ground, what are you going to do with all that jujitsu, right? And so he's been a great resource. He moved to New Jersey. I don't know what city you are in New Jersey, Mike.
Yeah, I live in Lyndhurst, but my school's in Glen Rock.
He's in some place in New Jersey. But yeah, I mean, it's just cool. Like I love that he's doing this like this merging of jujitsu and wrestling, because he did that. Now he's doing it with his online thing. But I mean, I get the shorts and the reels that come through, and I'll watch him. And he has a pretty good presence on Instagram. But he's super technical. Like I really enjoy watching his stuff. Little commercial there for you, Mike. But I really do like no matter what I'm watching, I'm like, oh, okay, I got to shelf that. Like I don't know barely anything about wrestling, but I always want to learn more. And but yeah, it's a great resource. Hey, who knows if you're ever in New Jersey, you can go track Mike down.
I was just about to say that. It sounds like I need to make a trip up there, get some training in, and I'm definitely going to follow the page now because I love the breakdowns, and I appreciate you guys having me on and breaking down my takedown too. It's I'm still new to all this and the UFC, but I plan on that was a good performance by me, but it's not my best performance. So I'll do even better next fight, and wrestling will be even more improved then, and hopefully I'll get some work in with you, Mike.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. Come down anytime. I'd love to work with you and get some scraps in. And yeah, like I said, everyone else, episode 88, we're having a breakdown on Preston Parsons knee slide. So stay tuned.
Yeah, we gotta get you prepped because you're gonna be on Rogan soon. So we got to get to this like whole podcast thing. Gotta get you dialed in, right?
Right, that's right. And I enjoyed talking to you guys. It was nice and relaxed, like you said, and I'm down to come on and talk to you guys anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll talk to your manager and let us know when you have your next fight coming up. I do a little bit of kind of basic like UFC MMA breakdowns and stuff, but definitely want to kind of get it out there when you're fighting next. And who knows, if you fight at Apex, maybe we could shoot out there. I live in San Diego, so we can shoot out to Las Vegas. But I've been wanting to go to. I've been to some events, but I haven't been to the Apex. I'd like to shoot out there, and I know they have real small crowds out in the Apex. Totally different vibe than you fought in the Apex on Saturday, right?
Yes, all my UFC fights have been in the Apex, and personally, I enjoy the crowd. Apex, especially the first fight, it was real quiet. It didn't really the nerves. The crowd gives you just enough good nerves for me, and having the no crowd just makes it seem, I don't know. It was a little bit different. I definitely prefer a crowd, so hopefully my next fight will be a pay-per-view maybe or somewhere with a stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd definitely be in the prelims. I mean, and if you keep doing it, I mean, I'm sure you get in the pay-per-view slot. That'd be pretty awesome. But I mean, I think it's just a number of wins away. And I mean, I think you're probably fairly close to getting a ranked opponent, don't you think?
I hope so. I know. Again, I lost my first fight, and then I had that win off of a short notice guy. But I wish my hand wasn't messed up because I'm ready to get right back to it. I want to keep this momentum going. I've nothing like winning the UFC fight. That was probably the best experience of my life so far. And also being out there training the Apex, or not the Apex, the PI. That was something else too.
Did you see Forrest over there?
Yes, yeah. I met Forrest Griffin. He's got that same dry humor that he has on TV and everything. So he was a cool guy. I met Donald Cerrone, Cody Garbrandt, Macy Barber. Saw a lot of people. So I was trying not to be too much of a fanboy while I was out there and just focus on.
It's hard not to, though,
fight.
right? I mean, Forrest is a great example of hard work. I know a lot of those UFC guys had really cush jobs working at the UFC. And then when the new management came in with WMEIMG, they kind of got rid of a lot of those guys. But, Forrest was there every day, grinding out, working, getting stuff done. And now he's had this great career because I think he just shows up. I think half of life is just, showing up and putting the work in, right? And it's funny to me. I see a lot of guys who, don't know anything about UFC. My dad knows this guy who's like friends with Andrei Arlovsky. And he was saying he met this guy who's like a really famous guy. And he looks at his buddy Pete and he goes like, who's that guy? And he's like, you don't know who that guy is? And it's like one of the guys that's on my wall. Like, you're like, you don't know who that guy is? He's like, I don't know. I don't watch UFC. You're like,
well,
you don't watch
everybody's just people. And that's what's cool about meeting them is there was nothing. I mean, obviously they're cool and they're great people and they've done great things, but there's nothing really spectacular or different about them than us.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I really like how, I mean, even like McGregor, right? He's just a normal guy, right? And it's like the difference is he has that ability to make you care, right? To get you like pumped for that fight and all those. I do like those shenanigans, even like shoves. I definitely didn't like that Jakar Close thing where he got pushed by, I think it was Jeremy Stevens, but just the hype, man. When I see a weigh-in or something, there's that intensity or whatever. Every now I watch the stare downs and I'll be like, oh man, I gotta watch this fight. This fight's gonna be good.
No, and I enjoy that too. I enjoy the stare down. I like the feeling, actually being in there and having that feeling. It's kind of what got me into this. Like I like that, not aggressive or not. It's hard to describe, but I do enjoy the face-offs. I enjoy the hostility and all that stuff. And after it's all love. After, like we all have the same dream, but I'm there to win. I'm always there to ruin the guy's dream, as bad as that sounds.
And we can rule you out of lightweight from here forward. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's fair to say. I'd say so.
I know Dustin. I think Dustin gets up to about 188 and cuts down to 155, and that sounds like a rough cut, man.
That's craziness. Yeah, I've put back on 30 pounds after a weigh-in whenever I was fighting at 55. And I still cut a decent amount of weight. I cut 15 pounds of water on the last day or two. So that's enough. And honestly, during my fights, I've never felt like I have 3 losses. I've never felt like the reason I lost because I was outpowered or the guy was oversized. So if the guy is 5 pounds heavier than me, I don't think that's going to be a deciding factor in any fight.
Yeah. And the strength isn't. I know with Yan or not with a Yan Aljamain Sterling fight, I actually had bet on Aljamain, and the reason I did is he said he had a really bad weight cut, and he said he was in there and he felt like he was still cutting when he was fighting, and so I was like, I have no reason to not believe him, and he had a really poor performance on the first fight against Yan, and then he came back and fought Peter Yan again, and of course he beat him, and it was a little bit controversial, but what's funny too is Mike, I think Mike, you wrestled at what, 147?
141 in college, 3 years. So yeah, it was rough. My biggest cut was my junior year, which was like 38, 40 pounds. And that was bad. That was bad.
Yeah, that's rough. And you guys have to wrestle same day, don't you?
Oh yeah. We weigh in, we got an hour and then we warm up. So it's like, you're trying to control yourself because you're like to get food once you weigh in. But yeah, I mean, you eat too much, you're going to want to puking. So you can't do that.
Yeah. And I've heard two people, like a lot of the fighters will say, like, when you cut too much weight, like if you go to 155, then it's like your whole camp is just about getting to 155 versus skill acquisition, right?
Right, exactly. No, and I'd rather focus on training opposed to the weight cut because I know I can make 170 on a 5 days notice anytime. And even right now, I've been eating cake and kind of enjoying not. Well, I mean, I've been eating so much sweet food and so much food that it's almost it's not as enjoyable as everybody makes it out to be. And I got guys fighting
Yeah.
this weekend. So we have 7 guys fighting. So I'm kind of not trying to look like a fatty in front of them.
This is
But
on the
even right now,
Bronx card, right?
it's a comment night.
Oh, okay, this is more of a regional fight.
Yes, sir. Yeah, regional.
Okay, no, that makes
Right.
sense. Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, so Mike, anything else you got?
Yeah, honestly, I got all my questions answered. I'm happy we got to, we got you on the show, Preston. It was honestly, it was awesome talking with you, learning more about, your journey and what you're looking to achieve down the road. And sorry to hear about your hand, but I'm sure after
Yeah.
some fixtures and some recovery, you'll come back stronger than ever.
Yeah.
Right. No, and it was worth it for the win. I'd do it again.
Yeah, Mike's a little disappointed because he thought you were like an Olympic wrestler, probably. So he's just like, okay, what? He's got all this material. Like he's like, wait, you didn't wrestle? What the hell?
That's right.
And
We'll figure something out.
it's so I guess my last question to you would be just around with the hand with the left hand broken. So what are you thinking? I mean, is that like best case 6 months before you're ready to fight again? Probably.
The doctor yesterday said 8 weeks until I can start training again, and then 12 weeks to start punching again, which is similar to my last injury on my hand. But I'm gonna try to stay in shape, do what I can, work a lot of kicks. I can still work my shots and drill a little bit. So I'd say about 6 weeks, I'll start getting back to grappling and wrestling around a little bit, and hopefully, or definitely, I want to fight before the end of the year.
Okay. Yeah, no, that would be great. Definitely let us know when you do. And yeah, I mean, anyone who's not following Preston, please do. And it's been just a pleasure interviewing you. I definitely hope. I don't know if you're on the UFC fight game yet. I used to play that game back in the day, but I'm gonna go get the new one. But we got to get you as a character on that UFC, whatever it is, UFC 4, UFC 5 that they got going.
That would be awesome. That'd be like a dream come true for me too, being on the game. And I want to get one of those UFC cards too. When I was a kid, I collected football cards and Yu-Gi-Oh
Oh, yeah.
cards, Pokemon cards. So I want to get a UFC card with my face on it.
No, we got to get a post. You got to get me a poster. If you get a poster, you're on a poster. You got to let me know and put it on my wall here.
Oh, absolutely. No, I will.
Yeah, I want to say, like, call it here first. You're hearing, Preston Parsons, UFC champion. He's got to get his hand healed up, but you guys, Usman, all these other guys, you better watch out. So yeah, Ben, awesome talking to you. Let me know when you have your next fight. We'd definitely like to check you out, and like you said, check out Mike. And if you ever have any questions or anything like that, and we'll get this up. And it's just been a pleasure, man.
Sounds good. And I look forward to talking to you guys again.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot, guys, for joining. It's great.
Yeah, thanks, Preston.